of Libya? I never discussed that subject. I was in favor of Libya. We would be so much better off if Gaddafi were in charge right now. If these politicians went to the beach and didn't do a thing, and we had Saddam Hussein, and if we had Gaddafi in charge, instead of having terrorism all over the place, would be, at least they killed terrorists, all right? And I'm not saying they were good because they were bad. They were really bad. But we don't know what we're getting. You look at Libya right now. ISIS, as we speak, is taking over their oil. As we speak, it's a total mess. We would have been better off if the politicians took a day off instead of going into war.
Many people are asking me, what do I think of Libya and its so-called newfound freedom? The fact is, what we should have done is we should have asked the rebels when they came to us, and they came to us. They were being routed by Gaddafi. They were being decimated. We should have said, we'll help you, but we want 50% of your oil. They would have absolutely said, okay, 100%. In fact, they would have said, how about 75%? So they came to us. They were nothing. They were gone. The war was over. He was taking over. Then all of a sudden, we go in through NATO, which is funded by us largely, and which is largely our weapons and our guys. We go in and absolutely decimate this guy. They take over, and now you ask for oil? You know what they're going to do? The same thing that OPEC does. They're going to rip us off like you've never seen before. They're going to charge us so much. Our economy is broke. Our country is broke. We're spending billions and billions on the so-called rebels that aren't even our friends. You watch what happens. They'll turn against us as soon as they have somebody else like Iran. And isn't it sad? We could have had anything we wanted. We could have had 50% of those oil fields. You know, in the old days, when you had a war, it's to the victor belong the spoils. We have wars with Iraq, with Afghanistan. We spend trillions of dollars. We get nothing, absolutely nothing. And those countries are falling apart. The day we leave, it's over. So we could have had something special. When the so-called rebels came to us, we should have said, fellas, we're going to help you. We want 50% of your oil. They would have said, thank you very much. We have a deal. Write it down. Sign it. We have a deal. We would have been a rich nation again. They have tremendous oil reserves in Libya. Instead, we help. We get nothing. We're very, very foolishly led. Our leaders, unfortunately, are stupid. I speak to you today as a lifelong supporter and true friend of Israel. I'm a newcomer to politics, but not to backing the Jewish state. In 2001, weeks after the attacks on New York City and on Washington, and frankly, the attacks on all of us, attacks that they were perpetrated by the Islamic fundamentalists, Mayor Rudy Giuliani visited Israel to show solidarity with terror victims. I sent my plane because I backed the mission for Israel 100%. In spring of 2004, at the height of the violence in the Gaza Strip, I was the Grand Marshal of the 40th Salute to Israel Parade, the largest single gathering in support of the Jewish state. I came here to speak to you about where I stand on the future of American relations with our strategic ally, our unbreakable friendship, and our cultural brother, the only democracy in the Middle East, the State of Israel. My number one priority is to dismantle the disastrous deal with Iran. The problem here is fundamental. We've rewarded the world's leading state sponsor of terror with $150 billion, and we received absolutely nothing in return.
I love Israel. I have so many friends in Israel, and they really do so much for us and really so much for the world. They don't get credit for it, and they should get credit for it. I want to thank my Jewish daughter, I have a Jewish daughter. This wasn't in the plan, but I'm very glad it happened. Well, this is a great honor for me and all of the folks associated with this dinner. And when they asked me, I said, do a little check. Let me know what's it all about. The respect that the people in this room and the leaders in this room have is unbelievable. So I said, yes, I'm here. I'm not making speeches. I'm just going to say thank you all very much. It's a tremendous honor. We love Israel. We will fight for Israel 100%, 1,000%. It will be there forever. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm a negotiator. I've done very well over the years through negotiation. It's very important that we do that. In all fairness, Marco is not a negotiator. I watched him melt down, and I'll tell you, it was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. He's not going down.
He thinks the Palestinian is a real estate deal.
And these people may even be tougher than Chris Christie, okay?
The Palestinians are not a real estate deal, Donald.
Okay, no. A deal,
They're not a real estate deal.
Is a deal. Let me tell you,
a deal is not a deal when you're dealing with terrorists. Have you ever negotiated with terrorists?
You are not a negotiator. You are not a negotiator. And with your thinking, you will never bring peace. You will never bring peace.
Donald might be able to build condos in the Palestinian areas, but he's not going to. This is not a real estate deal.
Senator, he will never be able to do it. I think I may be able to do it, although I will say this. Probably the toughest deal of any kind is that particular deal.
Let's talk about the subject of your speech today at AIPAC, Israel. Hillary Clinton spoke this morning at the AIPAC conference. Listen to what she said. Listen to this clip.
We need steady hands, not a president who says he's neutral on Monday, pro-Israel on Tuesday, and who knows what on Wednesday, because everything's negotiable. Well, my friends, Israel's security is non-negotiable.
She's talking about you. What's your response?
I agree with her on the last statement. It is non-negotiable. And frankly, she just doesn't know me. She doesn't know my policy. She doesn't know what I'm going to be doing. And she certainly doesn't know what I'm going to be saying today at 5 o'clock.
She says you don't have steady hands.
I have the steadiest hands. Look at those hands. I have the steadiest hands. And far steadier than hers. Look where she got us. I mean, look at Libya. Look at the migration. Look at Benghazi. I mean, here's a woman that's talk. She's just writing. You know, she's just reading it off a teleprompter. She's just, all she does, believe me, they write that for her. Look at the job. Probably in history, although I think John Kerry may even be worse. I'm not sure after the Iran deal. But look at what she's done.
She's referring to your comment that you wanted to be neutral as a negotiator to try to achieve an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement.
I would love to be neutral if it's possible. It's probably not possible because there's so much hatred. There's so much going on. I am very pro-Israel. I've always been pro-Israel. I have many awards from Israel, many awards. I've contributed a lot of money to Israel. There's nobody more pro-Israel than I am. We have to protect Israel. Israel is so important to us. And she didn't know what the hell she was doing. She raised her hand. I said, I don't want to go into Iraq. Iraq is going to destabilize the Middle East. And I was 100% right.
Can I just say one point on that? I have looked so long and hard for any evidence.
I'll give it to you. 2004, they had they had newspaper articles.
Right, but the war started in 2003.
It did, but you know what? You look at. I did an interview with Howard, and that interview was the first time I was ever asked a question. Don't forget, I was an entrepreneur. I'm a real estate person.
Right, but didn't you say to Howard that you thought it was a good idea?
This was before the war started, long before the war started.
Right.
And it was a very, I don't know. First, nobody ever asked me the question. You know, when you're doing what I did, nobody was talking about a lot of the questions that you asked me today. And I sort of like, well, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. By the time that started, I was totally against it. And from 2004 on, there's a lot of proof of that. Because as you know, there was articles in magazines. Yeah. There was a lot of articles.
A year after the war started.
No, but I was against it from before it started.
All right. But,
I mean, if you go back and look at that interview, and I'd get it for you if you want, but that interview was substantially before the war started. It was the first time I was ever asked a question. And even that, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, we should go in. It was a very, yeah, maybe, you know.
The only thing I would say, and then we don't have to belabor this point, is if there is evidence of you being against the war strongly before the war actually started, I would love to see.
The enemy is, and a lot of times the politicians don't want to tell you that.
Are you for invading Iraq?
Yeah, I guess so. you know, I wish it was. I wish the first time it was done correctly.
Let's talk about your tax return. Under new pressure from the Clinton campaign, Secretary Clinton talking about that the last couple of days. I just have a bottom line question for you. Yes or no, do you believe voters have a right to see your tax returns before they make a final decision?
I don't think they do, but I do say this. I will really gladly give them. They're not going to learn anything, but it's under routine audit. When the audit ends, I'm going to present them. That should be before the election. I hope it's before the election. But when the audit ends, I've had even journalists say that, no, nobody should give until audits are over. I've had journalists say that. So I think there's no I sort of have to laugh when Clinton says it. Mrs. Clinton said that I should give my tax returns. What about all the missing emails that she's got? When is she going to give the missing emails or her Goldman Sachs speeches? When is she going to give that? Very, very great hypocrite. But as far as I'm concerned, I want to give it as soon as possible. As soon as the audit ends, I'll give it. I've been under audit. Every year they audit me. I have wealthy friends that never get audited. I get audited every single year.
But as you know, Mr. Trump, the audit is no excuse. The IRS has made it very clear that an audit is not a bar to public release. It is entirely your choice. President Nixon, Richard Nixon, released his tax returns even though he was under audit. And when you were seeking a casino license in Pennsylvania and New Jersey, you released the returns to the state officials even though you were under audit.
I am under audit now, and as soon as the audit ends, I'll release my returns. It's a very simple thing.
Sir,
if you look at many others feel the same way. And almost every lawyer will tell you the same thing. When you're under audit, you finish the audit before you release. I have no problem. And it should be, and I hope it's before the election.
But, sir, if you were willing to release...
And by the way, people are going to learn nothing. You know, I put in financials, 100 pages worth of financials that show that I built a company that's worth more than $10 billion. It shows cash, it shows cash flows, it shows everything. You learn very little from tax returns, but nevertheless, when the audit is complete, I will release. I have no problem with it.
A couple of follow-ups to that, though. If you were willing to release your tax returns to get a casino license, why shouldn't voters see them before they make you commander-in-chief?
Well, because at the time it didn't make any difference to me. Now it does. If you take a look at the picture that we sent you, where the tax returns are probably 10 feet high when you stack them on top, and linked and very complex. I built a massive business, and I want to make sure that everything's perfect. It's a routine audit. I want to get through the audit first, and that's what I'll do. There have been many presidents that have not shown their tax returns.
Actually, every single nominee since 1976 has released their tax returns.
Before 1976, people didn't do it. I mean, it used to be a secret thing. I don't want it to be secret, but I do want the audit to get finished.
Before that, Richard Nixon released his returns, as I said, even though they were under. But to get to your point, on the one hand, you show that stack of tax returns. On the other hand, you say that people can't learn anything from them. They can actually learn quite a lot. They can learn your sources of income. They can learn whether you have any foreign sources of income or whether you have any Swiss bank accounts or other offshore accounts. Do you?
I'll tell you right now, I do not. And I don't have Swiss bank accounts. I don't have offshore. I really have a very, very clean company. And believe me, if I didn't, it would have been reported by 200 groups, because there's nobody that has more reporting or more scrutiny than I have. I've given my financials. They're extraordinary, and we would have read if they weren't. But believe me, when I released my financials, George, and we sent them down to federal elections, there was a feeding frenzy by the media, and they reported, wow, that is a great company. And I have built a great, great company. And by the way, when you look at numbers, when you look at incomes, when you look at all of the things, or most of the things that you talked about, that's reported on the financials.
It's not reported on the financials. What the financials don't show also is your tax rate. They don't show whether you paid a low tax rate or no tax rate.
I fight very hard to pay as little tax as possible, and I've said that for the last 2 years. I fight very hard because this country wastes our money. They take our tax money and they throw it down the drain. They spend $4 trillion in the Middle East, and we can't fix a road or a bridge. And I fight very hard. I consider it an expense because, frankly, our country doesn't know what they're doing with our money or our tax money, and that's part of the problem. So I fight very hard to pay as little tax as possible.
What is your tax rate?
It's none of your business. You'll see it when I release. But I fight very hard to pay as little tax as possible.
You know, we've talked about this several times over the last several years. I first asked you about this in 2011, and you said you would release your tax returns then. You were thinking of running for president when President Obama releases his birth certificate. He did. Then you said you would release your tax returns when Secretary Clinton released her email. She has turned over all the emails in her possession.
She didn't turn over all. There's plenty missing. I read yesterday where there are a lot of emails missing. I know she's a good friend of yours, and I know you worked for him and you didn't reveal it. But, you know, she did not turn over her emails. There are a lot of emails missing.
There were emails from her staffers missing. She turned over the emails she has.
There are emails missing all over the place. The whole thing is a scam. There are emails missing all over the place.
But you have also said then that you were just going through all of the returns and you released them as soon as you went through them. Now you're throwing up the audit.
I never said that at all. I said to you that I will release them upon the completion of the audit like anybody else. I was interviewed last night or the other night by Greta Van Susteren, who's a lawyer. She said, I happen to agree with you. Until the audit is complete, you shouldn't release them.
Mr. Trump, thanks very much for your time this
morning. Thank you very much.
So we put out a statement today. We watched this, and it's impossible to watch this gross incompetence that I watched last night. And we put out a statement a little while ago, and these people are going crazy. They won't report it properly. Shall I read you the statement? Donald J. Trump is calling for, now listen, you got to listen to this one because this is pretty heavy stuff, and it's common sense, and we have to do it. Remember the poll numbers, 25%, 51%. Remember the poll numbers. Okay, so remember this. So listen. Donald J. Trump is calling for a total and complete shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until our country's representatives can figure out what the hell is going on. We have no choice. We have no choice. We have no choice.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Hopefully you enjoyed the content. And as you can see, Donald Trump is a liar. He's obviously told lies. And people fall for these lies. That's because when you don't stand for the truth, you fall for any lies. God willing, I'll have more great content in the future. If you liked, hit that subscribe button. Peace.